Hi, I'm Pete Maldonado, the CEO of Chomps, and I'm excited to welcome you to Chompcast, a Chomps original podcast where we'll have 15 to 30-minute fireside chats with industry leaders.
And I'm Rashid Ali, the COO. Together, we'll be sharing valuable insights, advice, and real-world examples with aspiring and current business owners. We're happy to have you here along for the ride.
I'm Pete Maldonado. I'm the CEO and co-founder here at Chomps.
And I am Rashid Ali. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and co-founder at Chomps.
Yeah, so we've been doing this for almost 10 years now. It's been a long time. It's been a grind. It's been a labor of love. We've learned so much from the early days when we started this business. And, you know, what we're doing now is we're thinking about this Chompcast as a new podcast that we wanted to kick off. And I think a lot of it is really just talking about our experience. We think we've learned a ton over the years, and I think there's a lot of value that we can bring and talk about.
Yeah, I would say it's a lot of times it's easy for Pete and I to take credit for the successes we've had, and I think a lot of times we can only talk kind of at the top layer of this, and I think it'd be an awesome opportunity to provide real depth in how we execute across all functions of the business, and this is just an opportunity to not only showcase kind of why Chomps is doing what we're doing, but also hopefully help other entrepreneurs on their journey to kind of make it a little bit easier.
One thing that we want to do to differentiate is NFTs, but it's actually something called POAPs. And so POAPs are a proof of attendance protocol. So if you tune in to one of these Chomps podcasts, into the Chompcast, you're going to earn a POAP. From there, you can keep that POAP. That's an asset to you. Now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to offer, whether it be swag, whether it be access to new flavors that no one else has tried yet, or maybe it's an exclusive event that Chomps is holding. There's going to be a lot of different things that we're doing, and our marketing team is awesome. They're the ones helping us put together this whole Chompcast program. So we're super, super excited about that. And we feel like this is a differentiator in terms of all of the other podcasts that you can be listening to. We want to make sure there's something that we're going to be able to give back to you guys as part of a loyalty program that's tied to it.
So I think maybe we should start by talking a little bit about our backgrounds. All the folks are asking about how Chomps even came to be.
I was a personal trainer throughout college, and I grew up out in New York and Long Island, so I was out by the Hamptons, and so I had these clients that would come in from Manhattan. And they would come out to their Hampton homes and they would meet with me. I would put together, various workout programs for them. I'd meet with them, but then I would put together these, meal plans for them. And I found that they were super busy, always on the go, and they never stuck to anything that I wasted my time putting together for them. And I always just thought, man, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be some products that I could bring to market to make their lives easier. And that's really the wheel started turning. And so my entire entrepreneurial journey has really been based around that type of thinking, all nutrition and fitness related. And so, I had a couple businesses. I started in my early 20s, learned a lot from them. They obviously are not around. I'm not doing them nowadays. So they're a thing of the past. But, Chomps was an idea that I had for a while. And I started doing CrossFit and paleo dieting in about 2011. And that's when it was like, man, I have to do this.
My background is I originally went to school for computer science. I was going to be a computer programmer. Once in that environment, taking some coursework, I realized that it really wasn't for me. So I switched gears to the business school. I got a degree in information systems as well as finance. Then I decided I wanted to, go the legal route. So I worked for a law firm for a couple of years, studied for the LSAT, and applied to law schools. And then again, it felt like going that direction wasn't right for me. So then I switched gears into consulting, and I did business and operational consulting for most of my career, leading up to the point of starting Chomps and going full time. And I think what it allowed me to do is get exposure to a lot of different industries, a lot of different problems and challenges, and it really sharpened my skill set on solving problems and driving value and helping in pretty stressful environments, which the startup and entrepreneurial world really is. Pete and I met, it was some mutual friends, and it was a poker game. And Pete and I were chatting, and he had talked about a business he had started. Originally, the concept was to go after, if you guys know Omaha Steaks, but it was to offer a grass-fed, healthy beef option. And, I talked about my background, he talked about his, and it seemed like yin and yang, like where he was strong, I was weak, and vice versa. So we met the next day. I asked him how much he had invested to date. Was it like
$3,250?
Yeah. So I matched that. And, the original premise of the company was developed and kicked off. And I think about a few months into it, we realized that shipping frozen, the business model, like we just were struggling to see how do we scale it profitably. And so we pivoted pretty quickly, which I think is key to any good business, is understanding like when the current idea has ran its course and when do you shift to course correct.
Yeah, it's actually funny that Chomps, the original Chomps, we don't even have pictures of these, but the pack, we actually sold them in a pack. So we had 8 sticks. There were 8 ounces of meat sticks in a pack, and it had to be refrigerated. Buddy of ours that had a meat packing plant in Illinois was packing them for us, and that's where we came up with the name for Chomps. We thought that was a perfect fitting name for meat sticks, and so that was many years ago that we started that. But then we realized very quickly that refrigerating and cold chain and all that just really wasn't conducive to what we wanted to do. Like, this was going to be an e-com first product, and we knew right away that this had to be shelf stable. We had to figure out a way to find that shelf stability without adding all the crap that was in these other shelf stable meat sticks that were out there. And so that was really where that's where the hard part came into it, just trying to find someone that can actually do that for us and getting through that R&D phase. But you can talk about where how you track those guys down.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, if you think about snacking products, there's ones that are either governed by the FDA or the USDA. So if it has meat in it, it's a USDA product. And we learned quickly that anything with meat would have an establishment number where the USDA regulates it. So they require you to put that number on the packaging. So we found an app that you could effectively look up every establishment number, and we bought every single snack stick and found the facilities that were making them and reached out to all of them. And we landed on one that was quite small at the time. It was a single cookhouse in the back of a butcher in a remote city in Missouri. And it's the same key partner we have today. And it was interesting because you find a partner and, they need to be small enough to be able to accept your low volume orders, but also be wired the right way to want to grow. And that's who this partner was. And it was awesome, and it was lucky, and it was exactly what we needed to get the business off the ground, but also support the business really to where we are today.
We truly felt that this was bringing something to market that was solving a problem, which I think that's first and foremost. When you come up with any product, you need to be able to establish that there is a need for this product. And so that back then, and even today, there's a lot of different free resources that you can use. One of them is Google Trends. And that was one of the things that I used. That was looking at various search terms and trying to see, is there a need for grass-fed beef? Is there a need for grass-fed meat snacks and meat sticks in particular? And I'm looking at, and then the other thing was I also wanted to focus on the niche, communities that we plan to focus and to serve, which is going to be the paleo community, which was CrossFit. There was, Whole30 and keto. And so we're like, okay, these are small enough communities where we can come in and make an impact and be a memorable brand, but it's also not going to cost us a ton of money, which we didn't have in order to do so. So that was really the premise behind it. But if you looked at Google Trends and you looked at the search terms at that time, and even today, the trends are it's just the hockey stick for all of them. So timing was perfect. I think we were going to be hitting the right crowd at the right time with a perfect product.
I think, there's some brands out there where they follow the same approach, saying like, here's the consumer we want to serve. And they were focused a lot on kind of product attributes and macros to make sure that it checks those boxes. But where they failed was on taste, texture, and other factors. And from our perspective, like, you need to do everything to be able to really have stickiness and staying power with your consumer. And, we worked closely with our manufacturing partner to come up with a recipe that worked from an attributes perspective, worked from a macro perspective, but also tasted good. It was also important that the flavors and the taste wasn't so overpowering where folks kind of get bored with it. It always had to bring you back. So I think we were able to come up with the winning recipe in our original beef, and then we leveraged that recipe with our other items, and then made tweaks and deviations from there to come out with the full catalog that we have now. But I think at the end of the day, it really comes back to taste. I mean, if the product doesn't taste good, folks are not going to come back, and we're very fortunate to come up with a recipe that works.
Let's talk a little bit about how we initially started the business, because I think that's one of the things where people are like, man, I have this great idea. I don't have a lot of money, which we didn't. And I would love to be able to bring this to market. Like, what's next? Like, how do we do this? Yeah. I think I could say that, I think some of my initial failures in my entrepreneurial journey is really what led to us, or allowed us to really make this happen quicker than I think in most cases, is knowing how to deal with the USDA and finding commands and all that. We could dive into all of these various topics as we get into this program. But, one of the things I think that we did, which we would do all over again for sure, is starting this as an e-com first product and brand. And that was critical to our success, and it's critical to the velocities and success that we see on shelf now that we're in the retail stores. Mm-hmm. Like, that is just, and I feel like so many brands just don't understand that. And it's like failure after failure after failure. These brands come in and they raise a ton of money. The first thing they're doing is going straight to the big retailers. They're so excited about being in thousands of new stores. And that's like their metric for success. Like, oh, we landed all of this new distribution. It's like, that's great. That's the easy part. Like, how many customers are pulling the product off shelf? Like, what do your turns look like? And what do your velocities look like? Is this even a sustainable business? And so, thinking back, like the way that we started on, with e-commerce allowed us to get feedback from our customers. We were able to go and change product formulas if needed. And it didn't, the wheels didn't fall off. We didn't have thousands of retail stores that were now carrying this product that we can't change overnight. And so that's one of the things I think that a lot of brands, especially in the CPG space, just forget.
And I think the other thing is to think about really understanding your product. I think we're not all product works on e-commerce, right? So you think about our product, you also have to think about, like, does it ship well? Is it dense enough to make sense? Like, at the end of the day, we got lucky picking a product that is pretty low cost to ship, and you can send enough sticks to make sense financially, but you can still offer free shipping. Like, there were a lot of things where a lot of luck. I think we chose the right product, but then when we did the work, we figured out, we can start e-commerce, we can get it to the customer, we can offer free shipping, but we're also not losing money. I think some of the folks that are, selling certain other things, it's like you can't get profitable unless you go through distribution or get it on a different channel. So I think there's a lot to think about. I think early on we found a winning product, tastes good, resonates with certain customers, and then we figured out a path to get it to that consumer effectively to be able to generate a profit. It's interesting to think about how the landscape has changed, because if we were to start the business now, I don't think it'd be as easy, because if you think about, like, we spend all of our time talking about capacity and trying to support the growing business, and capacity doesn't exist right now. Back 10 years ago, you could call up a manufacturer and say, hey, I want to produce a couple thousand pounds a month, and it could do that. Like, now, there's probably a few that would do like low poundage, but you can't really scale and grow the business. So I think we started at the right time. I would say, like, we could find a path to make it successful if we started now, but it would take a little bit different approach. We would have to take a different approach as we did. The other thing is, he can talk a lot more about this, is just on the digital advertising and marketing space. I mean, it's changed significantly on how you can track and identify consumers and create cohorts. Like, it's not what it used to be. And I think we were able to do it early on, which also is a benefit that we started early. We were able to get a lot of good information to really understand our consumer that is not necessarily readily available. And I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think we leverage resources that were available to us that aren't necessarily available now.
The other thing too is from a brand awareness perspective, that just using social media, building up that community, that loyal following prior to landing on shelves is what's going to create that pull off shelves. And
yeah, so it's funny, like a lot of people think like once you land, retailer X, they assume that that's the job, right? Getting on the shelf, and that's just the start. Like there's so much work that has to go in to ensure that the product performs, right? You mentioned velocities, and that's just effectively, how much sales you're getting on each of your point of distribution, and it takes a lot of work. And so, what you want to make sure is the shelf that you're on is serving the right customer, right? Because if you have to educate the customer on why your product is the right product for them at that price point, it means you're having to spend a lot in advertising dollars or marketing dollars to spread that message. So I think, again, us focusing on e-commerce, starting to create a following. I mean, you always mention you want to make sure that your brand awareness is leaps ahead of distribution. I mean, it's critical. It allows you to better manage your marketing investment. And I think, we've been able to find that happy medium to grow retail as the brand continues to grow, the brand awareness continues to increase.
Yeah, I think that, today, I mean, we're in about 18,000 stores, and which sounds like a lot, but relatively speaking, it's actually not a ton, but 18,000 stores, and that's a lot for us. And from a sales perspective, we're now in the 9-figure range in sales, and so that's huge. And but what keeps me up at night nowadays is like, okay, what's next for the brand? So the last thing you want to do is see that, plateauing or even, falling off. And that's luckily we're in a good position right now where brand awareness, I feel like, is very strong. But we are constantly thinking about what's next. How do we continue building this brand and being innovative and, reaching out to more and more customers, strengthening that brand, but then also it's, getting more household penetration, but never allowing that distribution to exceed your level of brand awareness. So it's a science that goes into it, but we're doing everything we can and being diligent and we're trying to get better. But I think one of the things for us, and that advice I think that we could probably give to anybody else starting a business like this, is to surround yourself with people. Get a sounding board, get a mastermind network of people that you can network with that have been there and done it. Because it's like, I just think about that, Rashid, like I could probably give a million different examples of some of the best tips and tricks that we've gotten over the years for free, just from people that we network with.
I wouldn't say it's free. Like I think at the end of the day, the investment is our time. And that's the one thing we realize is like we sit on a lot of roundtables, or we're just simple. It's like catching up with a fellow founder, and I think you share this as well. Like I'm always trying to get like one nugget, like what's one piece of information I didn't have, and how can I leverage, and also like what can I give in return to try to help them overcome it. But at this scale, I think time is a precious commodity, and we're still thinking strategically on how do we allocate it. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of folks have done certain things, and we always like to leverage other people's scar tissue. Saying that though, I mean, if you're going to take this journey, I mean, be ready for a lot of failures. You got to roll with the punches. It's not easy, but you also really have to stay the course if you kind of understand and believe in the path. So it's tough, right? Because you need to know when to pivot, but then at the same time, like you need to be able to persevere through some of the challenges. One thing I think is interesting, Pete, I want to ask you this is, if I think of brands that really inspired me, are really iconic to our brands, I think of like a Chobani on what they did with yogurt, kind of introducing the concept of Greek yogurt. I think of Kind Bar, really taking the bar category and bringing a different approach to it, and like 5 Hour Energy, when you think about like what they did for the energy category. But then if I think about it, each of those founders were immigrants. And I think we think a lot about, like those immigrant founders and why are they wired such differently and why are those the brands? And I just, thinking about our parents and our background, while we are, first or second generation, we kind of have that. It's funny, we talk about like the chip on our shoulder. Like if you ever want to see P and I work hard, tell us we can't do something. But I was just curious to get your thoughts on that. Like when you think of these brands and they're fantastic, phenomenal what they did, and they bring a fantastic product to market, and they've achieved unbelievable scale. But it's interesting to think that these are all immigrant founders.
It's interesting, actually. That's a really good point, and it's almost like that underdog mentality. Like they just they have nothing to lose almost, and it's like they just want to go out and make it happen. And I think it's a good way to explain it. It's like and describe it. It's that chip on your shoulder, just like you've got something to prove, though, and it's the way we've always kind of had that mentality. And I don't know, maybe it's not healthy, but maybe it's but it's what drives us, man. That's what keeps us going. So and especially in the early days when it's like you're really not getting traction, and it's just a straight up grind, and it's all about who can be the most resilient and take the most punches and keep going. And that's the name of the game. I mean, like where we're at right now, this is we still have the ups and downs, and it's just a little bit different though. We've got the traction, we've got an amazing team to support us. With the early days when you're on your own and you're trying to get proof of concept and bring something to market and build a little bit of, a community and some following, it's like, that's brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal. But I think, and you're right about that too, because all those brands too, it's not even like they just have a great product or they've got a great brand or you can tell they're really good with the ops side of things, and they're, all these different things. It's all of those things all encompassing that make a great iconic brand like those thrive. And now that now that we've been through it and we're doing this, it's like it takes so much, and you need to be so good at building a team and keeping the team inspired to continue working for your company. And like there is so much that goes into this, and there's literally it sounds cliche, but that you never stop learning it's so true, man. Like there's never a day or week that with us running this business that goes by that we're not learning something that's just kind of changing the way that we even think about this business. So
yeah. And it's interesting too, you think about like the obstacles that you're going to face, as the business grows. And I think, you mentioned building a team. Like one of the other things you really have to be good at is, understanding what is the best resource to address the task or the problem or the issue. I mean, if you think about it at the very beginning, we were putting sticks in boxes, taping them up. We used to use regional A USPS boxes because you didn't have to pay for the box itself, and you got like a fixed rate. And so we found like that was the most effective way. It always hurt us to be able to think our consumers' first experience was to see this regional A box versus like something branded or something more just plain. But at the end of the day, it was about how do we most effectively get the product to the customer. And then we realized once we hit scale, we're like, well, it's not the most effective use of our time to put the sticks in the boxes. Let's find a third party that can help do that. And so it's like little by little, we figured out like, when do we outsource? When do we insource? When do we hire a full-time employee? I mean, even the way we built the sales team, it wasn't until like year 6 or 7 that we actually hired a person dedicated to selling. Yeah. And so I think, a lot of the decisions you make early on really have big impacts on the company. And so I think, you really need to understand, is it the right time to make this investment or if because you have a good manufacturing partner now, is that partner going to be able to scale and grow with you? And can you grow the company and continue to deliver quality product that's consistent? So there's a lot of things to think about. And, it is important to understand the decisions you're making now are going to impact the long-term impact of the company. But also you're going to make a lot of mistakes, so just be ready for it and just be able to kind of make moves and pivot when you need to.
Our brand and Chomps in particular, we have big plans for it. We're building a great team right now. We're on a bit of a hiring spree. We've got 35 FTEs, so 35 full-time people right now. By the end of 2023, we'll be double that. So we'll have about 70 people. That's our HR roadmap and how that looks. One of the big things that we're hiring for right now is really just bandwidth. That rule of thumb that everyone talks about is, one FTE for $1 million in revenue. To kind of put it in perspective, we're probably operating with about a third of the people that we should have if you were to use that rule of thumb as your metric. But I feel like we kind of like operating that way. We operate lean and mean.
Yeah, but I think at the end of the day, like, it's nice to be able to say, like, look how attractive the ratio is. But at the end of the day, like, it causes some of the functions of the business to be reactive, right? There's certain things where we're doing enough to get by, and that's where. But it's that happy medium between creating depth for them to be able to focus on what they need to focus on, but also making sure that hiring takes time and resources anyway, right? So you want to make sure that you are investing it the right way to be able to get the right folks in. But it's tough. Like, we never wanted a situation where we've seen a lot of other brands where they scaled super quickly and then didn't hit their numbers, and then they're laying off 25, 30, 40% of the workforce. And, it's something where, we never wanted to do that, right? I think, a lot of times, even when we experience churn in our business and folks kind of moving on to different things, and it's going to happen, but and it hurts regardless. Like, it's always sad to see people go, especially, who joined us early on. But, at the end of the day, like, as the business grows, somebody's needs, desires, what they need to be, rewarding work changes. But I think it's important to continue to bring in, folks that can help continue to grow the business. And I think, as the business evolves and grows, we're going to require a lot more people and create kind of depth and focus. But it's challenging. I think the people side of the business is very challenging, but we've surrounded ourselves with folks that are way smarter than us to help us kind of think through it.
Awesome. Well, we've been chatting for a while here. So again, key takeaways here. What we're looking to do is bring real value here. We don't want to be talking and spinning our wheels, talking about ourselves and our business. It's easy to do that. We can talk about this for days, but what we want to be able to do is really just figure out what are people that are listening to this, what are they interested in hearing, and what challenges are they facing that we could potentially give some perspective on, maybe some of our experience in the past. But again, if we think about how the advisors work in this industry, there's a lot of people that know a lot, and most people are willing to help. And we want to do that for people. And so, our time is limited. Like Rashid said, we operate and we're spread thin right now, but we want to be intentional about carving time out of our busy schedules to make sure that we're talking about this and offering some value to our community.
Yeah, for sure. We're excited to kind of share what we can share, and it's also value and self-reflecting and thinking back on the decisions we made. So I think, it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy as well. We believe that reflecting can help us better understand not only how we planned historically, but how we plan forward. So we look forward to helping any way we can.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, take care. Cheers.
Bye-bye.